that wasn't the only release that came out. That we, of course, have to talk about the big one. The big one that came out recently before Battlefront Classic Collection. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Now, here are my post thoughts about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, okay? Because I finished the game not that long ago. I want to say at the time of when I actually got Battlefront Classic Collection, I want to say about a day or two prior, that I finally finished the main story of the game. Now, I am going back and doing some of the side quests, doing all the extra like exploration stuff, but I finished the main story. That was the big thing for me that I wanted to do. And overall, okay, I'm looking at the Metacritic for the game. A lot of hundreds, a lot of high scores, a lot of people praising the game for many different reasons. So here's my overall opinion, post-game thoughts about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. The game is fantastic. The game is awesome. It was fun to play through. It has its little issues here and there. I will admit, I played the game on normal. There's a couple points later on in the story that I think are way too difficult for normal difficulty. I think that there's a couple sections that also drag on a little bit too much, or at least stretched out a little bit too much in certain sections. Granted, they're trying to be faithful to a lot of the original scenes from the original game, and there's a couple other spots where they try to expand upon some of the scenes from the original Final Fantasy VII. But as a package, as a complete experience, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, to me anyway, is one of those must-own experiences on the PlayStation 5. I feel like if you own a PS5 and you love action RPGs, or you love Final Fantasy, or you love JRPGs in general, you have to own Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. It's big as far as the amount of places you could go to, the exploration, the scope of stuff that you could kind of roam around in, the amount of content to do, all the different activities between all the map stuff that you could find, all the different side quests, the main quests, of course, the mini games. You got Queen's Blood, which, funny enough, right? Queen's Blood is surprisingly addictive, which is kind of goofy, to be honest with you. I did not expect to get into it as much as I did. I always thought like I was going to ignore it, but once I started playing it, I just kept on playing it in different sections and just trying to beat all the different people to level up in my rank in Queen's Blood. And I just went from there. And surprisingly, it was pretty good. The other thing, too, they have that other mini game from Final Fantasy VII Remake, which is the one where you actually have the little chibi kind of like, real-time strategy games? Oh, my God. And I'm blanking on the name right now. But there's a side quest that's tied to it. Okay, I think it's For Condor. Okay, it's this little kind of like, real-time strategy mini game where you place units on a map and you have to take out the enemy's tower. There's a whole side quest devoted to that, which, funny enough, I did not expect to be in the game again. I know that was a big part of the side quests in Final Fantasy VII Remake, but they brought it back again here. And again, surprisingly addictive. I was like, I'm not going to do the rest of this, but I did the whole quest. I'm like, you know what? Maybe I will go back and finish the hard mode of that. That is actually kind of cool. So again, the game is just a joy to play through. It's just actually surprisingly fun. And I knew that this game was going to be good because I love Final Fantasy VII Remake. I thought that was an amazing experience. Arguably one of the best games of the year that it came out. And this one for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, I think is going to be in the Game of the Year conversation for 2024. A lot of people want to have different opinions. A lot of people are going to come out and say it's like, oh, it's too early. Maybe you're just a little bit on the high of like just finishing the game. There's not much different about this from Remake, or Remake looked a little bit better. I don't care about any of that, okay? I'm focusing on the overall experience that I had by the time I finished it. And I will tell you, I really enjoyed this game. I think that it's a lot of fun to play through. I think that even if you're not a big Final Fantasy VII fan and you're kind of coming into this with fresh eyes, the game does a great job of catching you up from what happened in Remake, but also just gets you into the world as far as, really seeing the best aspects of Final Fantasy VII and just Midgar and Gaia in general, even if you're not into all of the lore that came beforehand with the original game or all the other spin-offs. Even if you didn't play Crisis Core, I feel like you'll enjoy Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, because I know Crisis Core is that prequel. It's that side game that some people love, okay, or at least a lot of people love, I should say, but not everybody has played, even though it came out again, the reunion version on PlayStation 5. But the point is, though, Rebirth is that game right now. It is doing really well for a lot of people. It's, again, as we saw here with the Metacritic, is getting a lot of high scores. Look at these. All these in the 90s. There was a bunch of hundreds up above. There are very few low scores for this game. Like, I'm scrolling down. That now finally get to the 80s. There's nothing below an 80, which is great. And funny enough, some of these other outlets haven't really been scoring it. Like Kotaku, Polygon, The Verge, CNET, AV Club. They haven't given it a score. But look at all these like high scores in the hundreds, the 90s. Look at this. This is pretty wild, man. This is pretty wild. And to me, it's well deserved. I think Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is really a great game on PS5. But those are just my post-game thoughts about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Tell me your thoughts about it down below in the comment section. Have you picked it up for PlayStation 5? Are you going to anytime soon? What do you think is going to happen in the next game? Because we are going to get a third game. I don't know if it's going to be the last game with these whole like remake, rebirth, whatever. I think that the next game should be called Final Fantasy VII Reunion. Personally, I think that's kind of the direction they're going. But whatever's going to go down in that game, I think that based on the ending and some of the wild territory that they start to step into with the story and the plot, I feel like the next game is going to be a big blowout. We might not see that for a while though. I give it a couple years before we see Final Fantasy VII Part 3, whatever it's going to be called. I think it should be called Reunion, but that's just me. So tell me your thoughts about all that down below in the comment section.